All right. Hello. Hello. Hi, I'm Kathy Freeman, and we are here just to have a few minutes of talking about working in our art journal. So, one of the things that I love is to take a few minutes after I'm busy, had a nice work day, and just start putting color down and work. And not really, I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know exactly what I had a page, and I'll be showing you here in the as I in the lesson how it what I started with. I started with actually a page, and I'll show you. Let's go ahead and get started with it. But I had a page that was just randomly it was a mistake. It was like something I was testing and trying things out on. And so because of that, I thought, you know what? Let's just cover it and do something with it. And so this particular project, I wanted to use a couple of mixed media elements. One is collage. I wanted to use collage. The other one is I wanted to use my acrylic pastels. And I also wanted to use right here some modeling paste. And I did not have my gesso in this particular location that I'm at. And so as I go along, I use the modeling paste typically as I do uh, to create contours, to create some raising up off of the paper, off of the surface. And then I also used it in place of my gesso, and it worked really well. The other thing is I love the way we can get texture from ripping the cardboard boxes and using that corrugated. I just love that texture that it creates. And so as I was playing with that, I was like, ooh, that would make a great ground. And then I just played on from there. What I'm lifting this up here is I want to see if I can, I don't know if you can even see it, but can you see the raised surface? Not really. You really can't. But the this here is the modeling paste, and it created a raised surface, which is really nice to have. All right, so let me go ahead and let's flip over here, and I'm going to take you through. Let's talk about this lesson here and share with you. There's my page. As you can see, it's just random flowers. I was doodling, playing with stuff, trying things out. And as I ripped the corrugated, I started seeing that I could create a ground. And so I am simply using on here just plain old school glue. Nothing super fancy, just plain old school glue. Probably if you were to, this was a piece you were going to sell or something, you might want to use something a little different, a little bit more substance to it, but it's in my art journal. And so it's just a-okay to use. So we're going to put that on. And as I start looking at it, I've got this little tiny piece left, and I wanted it to go all the way across. So I'm playing with it. I'm going to play with it a little bit and try to figure out how I can get that to go all the way across. And I just fit it in there just like a puzzle piece. Easy to do. Now, acrylic medium is my favorite to use. And what I'm going to do now is I'm tearing up paper. This is one of my favorite ones with the circles and that and all the colors. I love the color in it. But I'm going to start ripping that up, and we're just going to collage for a little bit. So if you got a sheet, grab some paper that you love, design, colors, whatever, and start collaging with it. And I always, as I'm working along, I think about if I've got a lot of vertical movement, a lot of vertical lines that are being created by things I've placed down. I always try to balance that out with something horizontal, which is what I did with that last piece. And this here is tissue paper that I have painted. And I have really loved working with the tissue paper and putting it on top of things. It has a really nice, if the paint is not too opaque on it, it has a really nice layering effect. And you can start layering, and then the transparency, you can see what's going on underneath. And it gives this really neat effect. So I love to work with tissue paper. And like I said, I'll just paint it with any of the colors that I have on hand that maybe are left over from a project I'm working on, and to create a nice little stack of what I'm doing. Welcome. I've got somebody here with us now. Go ahead and feel comfortable to put your name in and say hello. Just let me know where you're from, just so that I can get a good idea of where you are located. Love that. As I'm ripping this up, the tissue paper and that, I don't have an image or anything in mind. It's simply lay things down and cover it up. And that can be so therapeutic, can it? Let me know if you're watching, if you've ever used tissue paper, and if you're looking at this later as a replay, and go ahead and put in the comments. Have you ever used tissue paper yourself? The whole object here is just layer on top of each other. And I'm getting this feeling, and it might be simply because, on this piece of scratch paper that I had, this is actually a journal page. It's from my mixed media art journal. And so the page is a little bit lighter than the watercolor, but I'm getting this feeling as I'm putting these down of plants. And I don't know if it's because I originally have on here, the flowers that I was playing with or not, but I found this wonderful yellow in my stash here, and I'm going to place that on and start just creating one of my favorite images is a mountain. And so the shape that I have here is a great start for a mountain. And this is such a beautiful color that I could see it. Can you just picture this beautiful yellow and peachy orange as the sunset going across the sky? So as you're working along, your mind starts imagining. I think the hardest part of any of this is getting started, just getting something down and feeling like you need to know the direction you're going. But if we can, not let that hinder us and just tell ourselves we're just going to put paper down. And even if I'm not going to finish a project, I can at least enjoy putting some paper down and then setting it aside for a little while. But that gets me started. That gets me putting things down. And then our imagination starts stepping in, and we start seeing things and imagining things. And so I really just want to get right now down some different colors on this page. I already have a lot of red from the flowers. I've put a lot of the blue and the blue green down. So I want to mix and mingle in. And this is painted on tissue. I was creating this for another project. So I have a whole bucket that I use with that I keep all of my tissue paper in, painted tissue paper, I should say, and then I can just reach for it. And I don't know that I really like this going over the top, so I'm going to pull that off a little bit and not have it laying over. And I think the reason I want to do that is because I don't want any air bubbles or anything, and a little worried it might create an air bubble. This is a beautiful salmon color, and I'm going to resort now. I'm going to start using my fingers. Um, they are such great tools, aren't they? To use our fingers and as um, little spatulas or things to put stuff on. We're still just putting down papers, and my mind is thinking as I'm laying this down, well, how pretty it would be to have streaks of this color going across the sky, just like if you see that beautiful sunset, you see those little streaks and that popping across. Okay, we're going to dry it. Always dry or stop if you don't like to use a heat gun or a dryer, then stop and give your art time to dry, to just really kind of settle itself down there and dry. Um, because if I keep layering on top of this, then that underneath doesn't ever get, it always kind of stays a little damp. So we are now applying the modeling paste, and I thought, okay, I want to put it over my quote unquote rocks, the images that I've got for that. But I'm not really super happy with, I mean, it's fine to put a little bit on mm, but I'm not super happy with everything it's doing. I want a little more texture. So I have this really neat template here, and let's just start applying in some of the modeling paste and create these wonderful areas. It reminds me a little bit of like snow, even though I'm not ready for that. So I hate to say that right now. But it can also, as I looked at it, it can be some really neat clouds in the sky, some interesting clouds in the sky. And as I work, this is just a personal taste of my, or a personal thing of my, of the way I create, is I like balance to some degree. So if I've got something going on top, I will try to incorporate it a little bit down towards the bottom or off to the side, something just to give it that feeling. And it's really more about keeping the eye moving. I don't want the eye to just go to the top and stop because someone's really interested in what it is that I use there. I want them to move around the piece. And of course, I'm always, this is another personal thing besides that, but I'm very conscious of the numbers, so it's more pleasing to the eye to have an odd number than it is to have an even number of something. And so that's why I stuck a little bit up there at the top. Now, like I said, when I first started this with you, I do not have the gesso at this location, and I use gesso a lot for a couple of reasons. I need to go ahead and put the horizon line on here, which is going to be the base of the mountains. And so as I started creating, I thought if I'm going to use my pastels, I want to create a surface that you can see those pastels on. And so I'm going to use the modeling paste to become that surface. You could also use gesso, it would work really well. But I need to go ahead and create that horizon line or the base of the mountain. Gonna go ahead and dry that now. These are acrylic pastels. If you have not used acrylic pastels, I highly suggest that you get yourself a few. And this particular brand that I'm using comes from France, but you can get it on Amazon. There's a couple of different brands, but I like the pencil shape. And the acrylic is different than just using a regular pastel. You know, you can get chalk, you can get different things. This acts like that, but it's creamier, and I love working with them. Once I found these back in February when I was out and about and thought, this is something new. I'm always loving to try something new. And so as I started working with it, I loved the way that they, you could just blend them and they had such a, it's not a wet creamy, don't misunderstand me. It's not like butter or anything like that, but it goes on just really rich and smooth. So let's emphasize now our base of the mountain, that horizon line. Let's really emphasize it. And as I look at this, I'm trying to create the focal point, which is the mountain. So that's your focal point. And now I'm wanting to mingle and really blend things together. I'm knowing that I would like to add some flowers in that. So I started making this little stem. I'm going to make this little stem right now and work on it. But let's just play with our pastel and go over some of the areas and use it to blend in. Can't really see, even though I've got this for a flower, I don't think it really lends itself well to create the flower. So I believe what I'll need to do here is I'm going to add pen and outline and flowers and do it that way. But before we go to that level, let's take some more modeling paste and really kind of wet it down so it's not as thick and assimilate what gesso would be doing, and that is gesso creates a wonderful transparent, you can put it on heavy and it'll give you that bright white, that wonderful bright white, or you can put it on thin down and it gives you more of a transparent where you can still see what's going on behind it, but it helps it to really unify it. It sets the whatever you're covering, it kind of sets it back in the picture, the what you're creating, and helps to other areas that you want to focus on and that you want to emphasize. It helps them to really start showing up and pop out a little more. And so as you can see here, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead now with this and I'm creating a surface that will dry, and then I can go over with my pen and start creating some flowers or kind of little weeds, little things like that. And I need to get it really good and dry so that as I'm drawing, I won't bulk up or clog up the pen, because you can, if you don't dry these surfaces, when you start putting a pen down, you can clog the tip really easy. So I highly suggest that you get that nice and dry. And I have these are really nice. These are fluid acrylics, which means that they're going to be more transparent. And I thought, let's just add this. Let's paint over my cardboard and start creating some shadows and dimension outlines. Just watch me as I go ahead now, and I'm going to just paint over this. Really helps this to start standing out. And you start noticing this a lot more. Now I'm going to take just a second here and make sure that I've got this on the right screen for you so you can see. There we go. We have some choices. Don't you love that moss that's on rocks and things? I do. And so this is a little bit of a iridescent green that I have. And let's just add a little bit to that and give that feeling of moss, you might say. Now, believe it or not, this is probably not, the practice you want to use, but I didn't want to pull out my microns pens. I thought I've got this black ink pen here. And so I'm going to start just using it and doodling some, oh, you might say, I don't have the right word right now. I want to say weeds, but that's not what I'm trying to say. Just some foliage, leaves and bushes, and add some flowers and that to it. Nothing better than to just doodle and play with the flowers. Let's get this camera a little closer so you can see actually. Just doodle some leaves, doodle some little plants, some little flowers, wildflowers. We'll just start doodling that now down in the bottom using, I'm just using a regular old pen and ink, and it's working wonderful. And that modeling paste is giving me a great surface to actually work on so that it will stand out. Now, you don't need to come back in and fill in. I love that look of the contrast of having so much color and everything, and then having that black and white on there. That's a personal preference, but I just feel like today going ahead and filling this in and adding a little color to these flowers and the leaves and that. This is a kind of a seafoam green, a little bit of a moss color. If you want the actual name, it's a deco art, uh, and it's called Desert Cactus. And I want to contrast that with a yellow green. So I just have an off brand. It's not really, it's just a crafter's paint. And it's a beautiful yellow green. Don't forget to fill in your centers of your flowers. Now let's see. Next, I don't want to use any more of the excuse me, the modeling paste, but because I really want it transparent, but I'm trying to pull this part of the paper back a little bit so that the mountain will stand out more again. And so let's just take an acrylic white and really water it down. That will give us the transparency that I'm looking for. So just big strokes across, and see how wonderful that is to just set everything back and just create kind of a feeling of unity there. All right, we've got that dried, and now I feel like I want to really have these mountains punch out a little bit. So let's add some of this blue, this rich blue, and some turquoise to it. And this is easy to do. If if you're not familiar with using this, just hit the sides. Um, put like a little mountain back here. I know I've got all my texture in that, but I want to just add a little bit more so that there's kind of a little bit of the mountain range goes back there too. Let's not create a solid line. Let's go across, but then lift it a little bit and bring it back down. And I'm going to go ahead and bring some of this blue that I'm using. It's a lovely rich blue down in the bottom so it pulls it together and now we're going to add some green. I'm adding this green because I'm going to give the impression of bushes and greenery right down here. The colors I love to use are more of a moss color, an apple green. Those are my favorites. I like that warmer yellowy green for the art that I create. So as you're going across here, just obviously adding a little green across that. But just add color to small sections. Don't go straight across the paper here. Let's just take small little sections and work a little bit at a time on these little sections. I feel like I need to add a little more of the blue green in here. So I'm going to play back and forth with a little of the blue green and really let loose right now. Just relax as you're doing it. And um, there we go. We have that finished. It is complete. All right, let me bring myself back on here. And need to figure out, there we go. Let's go here. Here we go. I'm back. Which one of the little buttons to press to bring it back? It can be a little confusing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being that. I hope that that inspired you to, number one, just add color. Number two, to play around and not worry about what it is you're going to create, and pull out how many different things that I use in this that was so fun to use. Modeling paste, one. Pastel, acrylic pastels, two. Collage with tissue paper, three. I did use acrylic paints, four. And I used the corrugated uh, cardboard, five. I think that's about it. Five different things in there that I've so pull out a few. You don't have to have so many, but pull those out and start just layering. Start first with your background. For those of you that are just going to be watching the replay, start with your background and get that down. And once you kind of get your background the way you want, you can do a couple of things. You can move on to your focal point, which is what I did in this particular project, or you can use gesso to really unite that background. So get your background done first, and then go on to what is going to be your focal point. What is it that you want people to really look at first and to see? And that's what the mountains act as well as, if you notice down here on the bottom, the when we put this on here just now, that so you kind of have the what grabs your eye first? For me, it actually is the mountains, but this is pretty strong too, with all that going on. So what for you grabs your eye? And I like the fact that they move the eye back and forth. I'm not just stuck here. So that's why I do like this being almost as strong. I don't want it to be, you know, uh, balanced. I want it to be, a little bit one stronger than the other. And the reason this one pulls my eye right away is because I personally am drawn to color. And so that's why it might be this is what draws your eye first, which either one is fine. Just grab their eye. That's what a focal point is for. And then have them start moving around. And because I've got this modeling paste that we just added on here, see these wonderful little textures, it creates this interest in the piece and adds a little variety. So you're interested in, what is that? What's going on? And it looks. All right. So that was a fun project. It's going to be on here for just a little while longer. You can rewind this, go back and watch it again, and go ahead and share some of your ideas and some of the things that you create. I'm Kathy Freeman with Kathy Freeman Art. You can find me on kathyfreemanart.com, and I will check with you again next time. Thanks so much for showing up with me today.